it's Mike from AutoGuide, and today we're doing something a little bit different. It is a product test, but it's not a vehicle, it is a camera. As you probably know because you're watching this video, I do a lot of online videos and I have a bunch of different camera equipment to capture different sort of shots. Well, I needed something that was a good quality camera, very compact, and could attach to cars, as well as do intro stand-ups like this, and also be used in motion. So the camera I chose to try out is the Insta360 Ace Pro 2. Now this camera may resemble the same sort of looks as a popular other brands, but there are differences and there's some features on here I really like. But let me switch to this camera for this shot so you can see what it looks like. All right, we are now on the Ace Pro 2 camera, and the first thing that I notice is I am much closer to the camera. That means I can get more in a shot without having to back way up with the camera. Now, before I get into more demonstrations and tests, let's just go over some of the highlights of the features of the Ace Pro 2. The camera can be shot in 8K in 16.9 or 23.1 or the regular 4.3. It also can be shot in 1080p, 2.7K, 4K, and 5.7K. There is a 2x zoom, but it only works on 4K or less, and it's digital. So basically what it does is take that giant shot that it's normally shooting and crops it down to a very usable shot still for most video purposes. It can also shoot on 50, 37, 12.5, or 9 megapixel. The video mode also has a built-in HDR. It can shoot photos. I haven't really tested that much because that's not for my purposes. It records 16-bit audio on its own, and we'll get into sound tests a bit later. There is no built-in storage, but it can take up to a 1 terabyte micro SD card. There are 3 mics on the camera, but again, we'll wait a bit to get into the audio. So with the physical dimensions, well, it weighs about 6.3 ounces. The battery has a capacity of 1800 mAh. And when you need to charge that battery from dead, if you plug the actual Ace Pro 2 into the wall, it'll take about 75 minutes to recharge it. But if you use the fast charger, which I'll cover in accessories, it'll only take 47 minutes, a very specific time. Temperature-wise, Insta360 says the Ace Pro 2 should operate without issue in temperatures ranging from 4 degrees Fahrenheit up to 113, or minus 20 Celsius up to 45 Celsius. It's also waterproof and can go up to 12 meters underwater, which is quite a bit, but there's also a diving case that'll allow it to go 60 meters underwater. There is a built-in stabilizer that can be put through different levels, and it uses a 6-axis gyroscope. There is Bluetooth capability, and it can be compatible with various smartphones and earbuds and headsets and more. When it comes to microphones though, Bluetooth direct connectivity is limited. There is gesture and voice control. There's also auto or manual exposure. There's different shooting sort of filters, I guess you'd call it. I'm on the normal because that's what I normally just need to use. Oh, and having a 2.5-inch flip-up display is a huge useful tool, because when I'm doing stand-ups like this or my in-car driving, I can see exactly how my shot is framed and where I am, and if I'm recording, if the microphone's working, all those sort of things that you can't see if the screen was stuck exclusively on the back of the camera. And speaking of which, there's also a other smaller screen that just gives you some basic information on the front, like battery life, record time, if it's recording, things like that. So even when you have this mounted somewhere where you can't flip the screen, you can still tell how much time's been recorded, how much battery's left, and if you indeed are in fact recording. But enough about all that, let's do some tests. So as I said, right now I am standing to the camera very close in the regular zoom on 4K. Now what I'm gonna do is I will move it to 2x zoom and you'll see how much closer it gets. There, I am now in 2x zoom and I am probably giant on your screen and probably scaring you. So as I said, this is 4K. This is now 8K, notice the difference? And this is the lowest setting, 1080p. Now, as I mentioned, there are various ways to record when it comes to audio. There's a built-in microphone, and then there's various ways you can get external mics to work with a camera. So I'm gonna switch to external microphone right now so you can hear what it sounds like. So this is on external microphone, which isn't too bad, but obviously if I start to move away from the camera, I start to sound further and further away, and you can get a bit of wind noise. Next up, you can hardwire certain microphones in. So I have this adapter here, that's a USB-C from Hollyland, and I just plug it right in the side. And now you can hear it turn to the microphone I'm wearing. And now if I walk around, the volume doesn't change, and I have the wind protector on, so it's a much crisper sound. Now, the third way to hook up a microphone is Bluetooth within the Ace Pro 2, but there are very few microphones that works with, and I don't have one, so I can't test that. But the fourth way, and the way that most external microphones will connect to the system, is using this. It is the microphone adapter. It is a USB-C that plugs right into the Ace Pro 2, and then you can plug in a 3.5 millimeter auxiliary cable to then hook up to a wireless or a wired receiver. It also has a USB-C port, so you can keep the Ace Pro 2 powered while you're recording. And now I'm plugged in by the wire, and as you can tell, there isn't much difference because I'm stationary. In motion, the wired setup can produce pops and cracks. When it comes to safety, the Nautilus has pretty much every active safety system on the market today. I'm really happy there's a hard device I can plug in because the Insta360 X4 doesn't allow that, whereas the Ace Pro 2 does, so that's a big advantage for this little camera. I'm going to test this camera in what I do, and that is car reviews. This will be a very car-centric sort of test. Now, one big part of my reviews is the in-car talking, which I'm doing now. So I have the camera set up with the external microphone on 4K on one-time zoom, and you can see I get a huge area of the car in the shot. It's possible to change how wide the shot is, and I'm on sort of the most squared plane straight called linear. Here's the different modes you can do. This is D-Warp, which gives us still a pretty straight shot, but getting a little more on the sides. Now this is called Ultra, and you can see it's really starting to kind of wrap the camera into a bit of a fisheye, but you can see a lot more of the car now. And now we're on Mega, and it's not too different than Ultra or even D-Warp, but it's the next one where things really change. So this is Action, and it's designed for action scenes, obviously, where you're a little further away from whatever you're shooting. But on up-close shots like this, it kind of creates quite the fisheye overall view. For my shots though, I usually just leave it on linear because I don't need all of that extra wide angle view. And when I'm doing the in-car, it's usually set up like this on 1, but sometimes I might switch to 2, which gets a much tighter shot on me. For this specific vehicle, I would probably use a combination of the two because it just adds more variety, and it's nice that this camera can do it. Now you may notice when I zoom in, it's very washed outside because it's much brighter, and that's one sort of downside to this camera. When I use my smartphone on a similar shot, it's easier to combine all the different contrasts of lighting and makes a cleaner overall shot. So I prefer using it on the in-car, but there's a lot of advantages to the Ace Pro when it comes to exterior shots that I use it for all the time. A big reason I use the Ace Pro 2 is for mounted shots. Now, I can also mount my smartphone and I can mount the Insta360 X4, but the X4 I use for sort of further shots to make the car look like it's kind of floating, whereas this is great for detail shots. So shooting just behind a tire, or maybe shooting a badge, or just a feature of the vehicle. And because I can do 1 or 2 times zoom, it also gives me a little more flexibility in where I place the camera to what I'm shooting. And of course, the built-in stabilizer makes the shot very clean. In a similar sense, because the camera is mounted on the exterior of the car, it's great for car-to-car shots. So I can mount the camera either on the corner or the back or the front of a car and have another car being driven and chase it or be chased. It adds great dynamic shots, and again, the stabilizer and the zoom in and out really makes for a crisp, clean shot, which is so easy because it's just this little camera and one suction. It's easy to get it on and off without having to set up a huge contraption like the Insta360 X4. Now I use that for car to car as well, because on the corner shots, I can actually pan the car back and forth. But if I just want a straight, non-moving, dead-on headshot, this is the camera I use. The final shot I use this for in car reviews is this stationary static shot. Now I could pan with this camera. I do have the adapter to put it on my tripod, but I use the accessory mini tripod, which I'll show you in a minute, with this camera to get drive-by shots. It's good because once again, I can use the 1x or 2x zoom, and I can also change between 4K and 8K depending on the shot. The external microphones on this camera are great too, and they capture the noise of a vehicle ripping by better than my phone or the Insta360 does. So that's a huge plus because I don't have to hook up an external microphone to this to get some good road noise when I'm doing my drive-bys. Image quality on drive-bys is quite good. I would say it's on par with, again, the smartphone and the Insta360, depending on lighting, angle, and whatnot. It excels in some areas and doesn't in others, but once you sort of learn where to put it and how to put it, it's great. And being so small, it can also do some fun trick shots, like having a car drive over it. So before I wrap this up, let me just cover some of the accessories that I find necessary for what I do with the Ace Pro 2. The first is the mini tripod, and as you can see, it's quite small and easily fits in my computer bag. But if you open up the handle, it becomes 3 feet, and then you can actually push and pull the tripod, and it has an extension that goes way beyond its normal size. Now, it doesn't go way off the ground, and ground shots are still, this is about a foot or foot and a half off the ground, but it's also very handy if you put it on a surface like a desk or a table. Other accessory, as I mentioned earlier, is having a fast charger for the batteries. I have 3 batteries to make sure I never run out. The batteries, I would say I get about a half hour to 45 minutes of usage time per battery of recording. But this triple charger is great because I can put all 3 batteries in at the end of the day, charge them all up, and then I have hours of usable battery capacity to film the next day. Finally, the last one, which may be the most important, is what it is currently connected to, and that is the single suction mount, because as I said, I use it for exterior shots as well as interior shots. So let me see here if I can just loosen it up. And it has a lot of different ways you can adjust and move it, and also the actual attachment to the Ace Pro 2 also has some adjustability, so it's really easy to get the right angle and shot that one needs. Is the Insta360 Ace Pro 2 perfect? Well, no, it's not. Like I mentioned, in moderate contrast situations, it has trouble capturing both the dark and light portions of a picture. The 8K doesn't allow for digital zoom, and even in the flattest linear mode, you can see that it's still a little warped at the very edges, but that's not really a big deal. What it can do is exterior mounted shots, interior mounted shots, car-to-car shots, drive-bys, exterior stand-up, interior stand-up, quite a few things. That said, this isn't my one camera solution, but it is very useful and almost necessary for certain shots, which I use in basically every review, and I'm happy to have it as part of my overall camera arsenal.